I think when we had the money, we started thinking of a small film. How to minimize your cost and make a great film. We decided to put a man in a lift and make a film about just that. We started writing it, and I
Were
think
you
we.
in Dubai when you thought of this idea? Hi, and welcome to Spotlight with Tina. I'm your host, Tina George, an international runway model and a film professional. Here to bring you insightful conversations with masterminds in the film and fashion world. Are you ready? Lights, camera, and
Cut.
we won't cut her, Suraj. So, Suraj Joshi, film editor, actually, film editor for an award winning film editor. Which film was it again? Can you remind me?
It's called Calling by,
I've heard of
yeah,
it.
it's called Calling. It's been directed by a very, very dear friend of mine, Raj. And it's a fantastic film on mental health. And I hope more number of people are going to get to watch this. At this point, it's still at festivals. So, yeah, it's
Well,
a great film.
you won like what, 3 or 4 awards
Three.
internationally and sound design as well. You were part
Yes.
of that.
Yes.
Now, you also been in the film industry for 20 years in commercials, feature films, and short films as well.
Short films as well, a lot of brand films, a lot of training videos. It's run across the country till date. Uh,
I've seen a lot of your commercials.
yeah.
And you've recently moved to the UAE.
Yes, yes.
But before you came here, you did something amazing.
Mhm.
You directed a feature film called Flight, which is India's first aerial theatrical film.
Yes,
Is that right? And
yes.
now people can see that on Amazon
And Apple TV.
and Apple TV.
Yes.
Not Amazon in the UAE, unfortunately.
Amazon India, Apple TV worldwide. Yes.
3 million is not enough for a movie. I mean, seriously? 3 million?
Well, if I have to speak honestly, no amount of money is ever enough to make a movie to begin with. Because even if, when you look at big budget movies and tentpole films, as we call them, uh, they have a lot of money. The funding is there, the studios are on board, the distribution is in place, they have Tom Cruise, they have stars. Still, they're struggling with budgets all the time, right? They've overspent on some part of the film and they've, overshot something. It's always the case. So when you say 3 million is not enough to make a movie, I would say any amount of money is not enough to make a movie.
The more the
Having
better.
said that, why the number? Because the 3 million is something, 3 million US dollars is something that cost me to make the film, and that it was a theatrical feature film. Though, if you look at the number, it's a very small number. You look at the film, it's a very big film. So it's kind of sarcasm when you say 3 million is
It
not.
is. It
Yeah.
is sarcasm on my point because that is a huge number
Yes.
to even think about. Now, this funding, this movie was self-funded.
Yes.
If I'm right, you
Yes.
and the actor Mohit,
Yes.
was that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So I think me and Mohit partnered up almost 18 years ago because we both had a passion for making films and we both wanted to make films. But we were newcomers, nobody took us seriously. And whenever we wrote scripts, people looked at the scripts and said, great script, great screenplay, fantastic film, but we don't trust you with money because we don't know what you can do. You might overshoot and you might, run out of budgets and you come back to us and say, we don't have the money, right? So we decided to make our own money. So we started a company called Crazy Boys Entertainment, and we were doing everything under the sun which was related to audio visual. And over, I think, 8 or 9 years, we put together the money to fund our own film.
It took you 8 to 9 years. So you
Yes,
had
it.
the idea 8 to 9 years ago before you made the
No,
film?
the idea came later. We wanted
Okay.
to make a
A
feature
film,
film,
right.
and see. So the region where I come from in India, it's brimming with ideas. It's an oversaturated market with ideas. So if you have an idea in India to make a film, it's probably already made, or 20 other people in your vicinity or in your building are thinking about the same idea. So very often what happened with us was we thought of ideas, we wrote scripts, and then we saw a film on the same lines is made already. And it happens to a lot of my friends, and it's very common in
It's
India.
still happening, I think.
Yeah, it's still happening, and not necessarily that the stories have been taken from you without you knowing it. People have ideas already. The common ideas are like everywhere. Uh, so I think when we had the money, we started thinking of a small film. in the beginning. And I think every first time filmmaker starts thinking about the fact that how to minimize your cost and make a great film, so that you don't want to spend too much, you don't want liabilities, you don't want people knocking at your door saying I want my money back, right? He decided to put a man in a lift and make a film about just that. We started writing it, and I
Were
think
you
we
in Dubai when you thought of this idea? Because no.
Unfortunately, no. Or fortunately, uh, we did that, and then we got stuck halfway because we did not know what to do with this character, right? Because it's a stable environment with an unstable person in it, but there was not much to do. And one fine day, we were sitting, and we were like, "Can we put him on a plane?" And then Mohit was like, "Can we remove the pilot?"
Of course.
And yeah, and that's how the idea happened. And then we got scared, which was the great part, because we were like, "Shit, now we've made it a big film, and we don't have that kind of money." But then, is 3 million enough? Yes, it is, because the film was made. The film was made the way we wanted to make it. The film went to theaters where we wanted it to be, and it's received huge amounts of appreciation.
When you guys decided to make the film, did you have the money in hand at that point in time?
Yes,
You had, okay.
yes,
So it's like I have 3 million. What am I going to do with this money, kind of thing?
yes.
Okay.
I think the primary mistake most of the first time filmmakers do, especially people who are funding their own films, they set out having a small amount of money, though their budgets are way beyond that. They set out making films with no money or very little money, and let's figure out life as we go. Let's shoot for 2 days and see where the money is going to come for the next 4 days. That's not how it
That's
works.
risky.
If you don't have the money, don't shoot. It's simply because it pains me as a film professional to see films that are half made and sitting in cans or sitting in hard drives, and they don't come out, and there is no money, or actors have moved on and they've become superstars and now they are not giving dates, and a lot of dynamics are involved, right? So you need to have the money. So it was very clear with us that we needed to have the money in the bank to go out and start spending it. We are not spending money that does not exist.
Like, was there a business plan attached to that?
Hard lesson learned. Uh, Filmmaking is passion. Yes, a lot of people want to be filmmakers, directors, actors. But at the bottom of all of it, it's still a business, right? So filmmaking is nothing but making a good dish at a restaurant, right? You can put all the ingredients, you can make it taste like out of the world, but if you don't have people to eat it, and if you don't know how to put it out there for people to come and taste it or try it, it's a product of no use, right? You've
Absolutely.
lost money buying spices, buying raw material, renting a kitchen and making the food, right? So it's exactly the same thing. It's business. So yes, there was a recovery model we had, uh, thanks to Mr. Vivek Vaswani, who's my mentor, and I started off learning the business of films with him. I think the first 2 years of my film career went into understanding the business, how money flows, who loses money if the film doesn't work,
Wow.
who's making money if the film doesn't work, and a lot of other
And
dynamics.
who's making money if the film does work?
Actors always make money.
Do they? Really? More than.
Always, yes. Nowadays, no, because actors are producers themselves. But I think most of the time, till the last 5 years, all actors were taking the money and going home, right? I mean, it doesn't matter who loses money
You're
after that.
talking about huge stars.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah. I mean, actors who work for free don't get paid, so they don't stand to lose money. Actors who work for money, yes, they get paid and they go home, right? I
So
mean,
the others may not get paid, is what you're
yeah,
saying,
the people
right?
invested in the film monetarily always lose money, right? Actors are not monetarily invested into the film. And if you're good as an actor, you'll always find work later, right? But if you lost money, you can't make another film as a filmmaker.
And that was a huge risk for you guys.
Yes. So, looking at the going back to the conversation, I think looking at the business model was our first objective, and we went back and looked at films of this scale. It was a huge film that we were making, right? It was a man in a plane. It's a 2-hour action film. It's just non-stop things happening, and there's crazy amount of visual effects involved. So we said, okay, looks like a $10 million film. Need to make it in 3 million. Now, what are we going to get from the 3 million back? Are we going to lose all of it? Are we going to get some of it? So we calculated. So we literally calculated the lowest possible amount that we will get, and it was 3 million,
Okay.
because we literally went out and calculated 10 people in a cinema hall per screen per city into 3 days. Only 10 people will watch the film. And how much money are we
So
making? 3
super
million.
conservative in your
Yeah.
business model.
Yes, and I think as the saying goes, I was taught if you don't have stars in your film, your budget is your hero. So the budget was our hero,
Yes.
and I think it worked in a big way because we didn't stand to lose a lot of money at any given point of time, and that fear didn't exist.
But what were your challenges in maybe in the sound or special effects or even in the designing of the art department in making this film?
I think the challenge was in every department. Every single person I narrated the film to, and we went the film to actors, technicians, everyone. They all said the same thing. It's a difficult film. Don't make it.
Don't do it.
It's a very difficult film for a first-time filmmaker. Don't make it. Right?
People like you, they should never say that too, because people like you will go ahead and do things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So me and Mohit both were like, no, we will make this film, and we want to make this because, look, if you're making your first film, either you make it a big hit, or if it doesn't work, make it a big flop, right? At least they'll know there was a big flop.
Get your name out somehow.
Yes.
Right.
So make a big film. So it was difficult, and because technicians got scared, our DP Deepak Pandey got scared, our set designer Amit Pathania, genius of a person who did pull this off in the kind of budget that nobody on earth I know can pull it off. These guys got scared first. And then they were like, okay, it's a challenge because they were also hungry. I was fortunate enough to meet people who were very hungry to innovate, to do something which was impossible, and put together a film which was not possible by these set of people. You look at those bunch of guys and they're like, these guys can't make a movie like that.
They're going to watch this, right?
Yeah,
That's
they
what you
are.
thought of that.
Yeah. And we all look like that. We all look like headless chickens. Like, oh, it's a plane. We have to put up a plane. So the challenge was right from building a plane, which like you cannot film in a real aircraft.
Now, I said 3 million is not enough for a movie. However, I said that obviously as a really interesting title for this podcast. But I understand after seeing the movie, the film is so technical, right? 3 million probably is not enough for that kind
Yes.
of film.
So our initial challenge was to find a plane to film in, right? So we tried to look for planes which are down and out, run their 25 years, and they're out for scrap. Very difficult process to get into that. Then we decided to make a plane. Now, the physical challenges of filming in a plane is simple. It's 8 feet wide. That's about it, right? No matter how long the plane is, and it's a private jet, even more smaller than a typical commercial aircraft. It's 8 feet, and then you have to put a camera and a cameraman and a focus puller and the lighting guys and the actor and 10 other people, right? And myself who's directing. So it's insane to film in such a cramped space. So we decided to make the build the aircraft a little bigger, 1 foot.
Okay.
That's it, because otherwise you'll give it away, right? Now, filming in an aircraft is difficult. So what we did was our set designer decided to build a plane with all removable panels. So all the panels could be removed. So I could put a camera from anywhere and film from anywhere,
Very smart.
right? And even the top could come off, and you can film
Was it
from above.
IKEA plane?
Yeah, kind of an IKEA plane. Yes, you have to give due credit to Amit Pathania for that. Uh, yes, and this is something that we could not have achieved with a real aircraft. That is one thing. Second big challenge was moving the plane, right? It's a huge vessel. Even in terms of a set, I think it weighs somewhere around 4 to 5 tons, if I'm not wrong. And picking up 4 to 5 tons is a big problem, right? Because we need hydraulics to move the plane. And there are films like Denzel Washington's Flight, if you look at the making ever, we looked at that and we were like, this is what we need, because he put the set on hydraulics and he moved it. So people were moving and there were things falling. We didn't have the budget. The cost of hydraulics, and it's not available in India. You had to import it and you had to call for it from outside. The budget to bring it in and film it was 3 times the cost of our full film. It was 3 times the cost of our film, and it was insane. And we were like, no. And then our production designer Amit comes around and says, "Look, we can't hang it because it's too heavy from the studio. Right? The studio is going to come falling down. So let's use the ground. Let's use the earth, because this is the strongest component ever. Right? This can hold anything. This can pick up anything." So he used a lot of. He put a truss in 4 corners, used chain pulleys to hook the plane from all 4 sides, and he decided to pull it up. So there were like 7 to 8 guys sitting on set and doing this while the plane was moving.
So they
It
look
was
like they're playing
manually
video
done.
games.
They were playing video games. They were manually doing it. With that, what we could do was, because we were hanging the plane, we could lower one side of the chain pulley for the plane to do a nosedive. We could
Yes.
do it the other way. So that was very, very innovative of him
Did you
to do that.
patent this idea because now it's your thing?
That's okay. I mean, look, it's finally the ideas that come to filmmakers in difficult situations are ideas that are used by other filmmakers, and it's always good
Of
because
course.
it gives birth to new ideas. Uh, they'll probably do a better job with it than what we did. You never know, right? So that, yes, was a big, big challenge. Filming again was a big challenge because sunlight comes from a distance,
Right,
right?
yes.
In through the windows of a plane. Studio lights are right here, right? Right next to you. So the DOP's challenge was a huge one. He had to hang lights from the studio. He had to put them far away. He had to literally, there were lights outside the studio from the door coming in. So there were practical challenges to make this, and we had visual effects in the film. We knew that beforehand. So the same shot had to be taken at least 3 to 4 times every time. So every time I say, okay, the VFX department used to rush in and don't move anything, we have measurements to take. And so every shot at least took us a good 15 minutes or 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a long time for a single shot,
Yes.
right?
And how
Even if
many
it's a
shots
reaction.
you will need for an entire feature film? My goodness.
Yes. And filming was another big challenge as a director for me because it's a closed space and it's a moving element. And after a certain point, you get bored of seeing the same space. And it's happened with a lot of films that we've seen previously. And probably films that have worked are because of innovative ways of seeing the same thing. So I'm looking at one person in a plane over and over again for 2 hours, right? So we had to get into spaces where which was inaccessible, from where people had not seen the plane.
Exactly. I saw really interesting angles. And before we even had a chat, when I looked at the movie, he was like behind, I guess, the board of the plane and the seat, and you had angles from there and you from underneath. And only later did you tell me that you were actually moving parts of the plane out
Yes.
to position your camera. I'm
Yes.
like, that's
Yeah, we had to,
very
right?
smart.
Because we couldn't fix things. We didn't know where we were shooting from. So we had everything in the plane removable. Everything was removable, everything could come back and it get fixed in a minute. And that's how we worked with. And we had huge storm fans which were blowing in the actor's face when things go west in the
Yes.
film.
And the bathtub?
And the bathtub as
That
well.
was really interesting, the bathtub.
Yeah,
That
the bathtub is an interesting episode actually because this was something which was not written in the script when we had almost finalized the film.
So how did the bathtub come into it?
Oh, we were missing action.
Okay.
We were like, we still need a little more action. Let's make it more problematic. Let's make it more difficult, right? And that's where films work. I think any film that you look at, which is a roller coaster ride, never ends with solving one problem. It always leads to another one, and then it leads to another one, right? And this is what we formulated. And he said, let's blow the plane. The plane was never blowing up in the first place. Let's blow the plane with a bomb. And I was like, okay, but then how do you how do you save the situation? Let's put a bathtub and let's just use the bathtub to
So
do
where did the
crazy things.
bathtub idea come? I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah,
Why a bathtub?
because
Oh,
it's the
was it
biggest
already
thing
there?
on the plane.
It was already there.
Also, we it was an advantage because it was a private jet, so we could put in a bathtub.
Was the bathtub already supposed to be in the plane though?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes,
So
it was
you
all.
used what was available
Yes.
and then thought of that.
If
Understood.
you watch the film, so you know that we took a decent amount of time, I think 25 to 28 minutes before the plane takes off, so that we show every single element
Yes,
and corner which is going to be used later in the film.
correct.
And that's typical formula of screenplay writing, but we did that because once you get in into the plane and it takes off, there is no way you would understand anything because so many things are happening. So you need to know where what was placed, what is flying at his face from which point in the plane.
Correct.
There is a television which is flying at him at some point. There are cabinets flying at him from another point. So you need to know where they're coming from. It
Correct.
was very important.
No, it's such a well-made movie. One of the things that I learned after speaking to you is that you actually did so much of research in speaking to pilots and people in the aviation industry to accurately reflect what would happen in a plane. How much of that and how much of creative license was employed in this?
I would say the creative license was employed only in terms of characterization, situation handling, but not with the technicalities, because we needed to get the technicalities right. Also, because it was a film which was experimental. Uh, it is very hard for people to believe in a country like India that something like this can happen, right? If I look, Indian people go and watch Vin Diesel movies in Fast and Furious, where he's jumping from building to building to building, and they will believe it. But if an Indian hero does that, it has to be a huge star. Otherwise, they will not believe it, right? And we had a fairly new actor to work with. So we needed the technicality to be right, so that tomorrow, if somebody gets up and says, "No, this is not true," then we would be at fault.
Have you had to defend yourself against
Never.
this? No.
Never, because we actually did in-depth research in terms of what happens when the plane explodes. And we've looked at air crash investigation episodes, and I think around 45, 50 episodes of them, streamed them back to back and watched them, understood technicalities, because that is the best place to learn if you're making a plane film. Anyone who's making a plane film should watch air crash investigation, simply because the investigation part reveals a lot of technicalities after the crash.
True.
And that's where you know, oh, this can happen. Like in the film, there is a simple situation or an episode where the plane has a big hole in it, right? And it's still flying. And many people ask me, how is it flying? The simple answer is the technically correct answer, not the one which has cinematic liberty. The correct answer to it is actually, you can fly a plane at 8,000 feet and below 8,000 feet if it has a breach.
And that's mentioned in the film as well. You made a
Yes.
point is to talk about
Yes.
that.
And our intention was to add every single piece of technicality into the film, so that if there are questions while watching, they're answered. Right? So focus on the film. Oh, this is answered. Huh? What happens to this guy next? Oh, wait, how is that happening? Ah, this is answered. What happens to the guy next? So you need to keep bringing them back to the character and the story, as opposed to losing them astray.
And I love that about that, because I'm the kind of person who's also very critical when I watch movies. And it, even though I know it's a Hollywood or a Bollywood movie, it still needs to make sense from an audience perspective.
Yes.
For me, at least. So you actually going and answering those questions made me feel, okay, right. And you in the film, I mean, this makes sense, and okay, this makes sense. Like there was a point where, without giving too much away, one of the guys opens the plane door and jumps out, and you're thinking all hell's going to break loose, but then the door closes and it's as if nothing happened. It's
Yeah.
like I didn't even imagine that those kinds of things could happen in a plane. But I learned a lot
Yeah.
by watching that film.
Yeah, I think I will also have to give a considerable amount of credit to the visual effects of the film and the guys who worked on it. A fantastic team one had to work with them. Uh, because we had the advantage of doing visual effects, initially the idea was all the cockpit panels are usually LED screens, right? We decided no, we need to show at what height the plane is at every single 15-minute gap. So we needed to be customized. So if it needs to be customized, then we need to do it in visual effects. So there were green screen windows again everywhere. And I think the film had around 2,500 shots.
Wow.
I think 2,300 shots were green screen and visual effects shots. So it was that amount of work. I think we'll have to give it to them to keep the film engaging. And they came up with ideas saying that, look, I was watching this and I realized I don't know where I am at this point. What height am I? It's a diving plane. I need to know what height am I at, right? And that's something we answered with visual effects again, right? With a close up of. So a lot of things came in. This film could not have been made by one person.
No,
It needed a team of people who were hungry enough to do this. And fortunately, I found those people to make the film.
I mean, you should be so proud of what you have achieved. I mean, I was waiting to see this movie for a long time since I met you, and I'm really glad that I finally did. There's one particular dialogue in the movie that I love, and the dialogue went something like, "If you want me to fly, raise the skies." I mean, I'm just paraphrasing in English. It was said in Hindi. But I hope that's the case for you. I hope the skies raise even more further and that you go even more further, and then you'll take all your friends along with you.
Thank you so much.
But thank you so much for today, Suraj. I hope you had a good time.
Yes.
We have learned a lot and wish you the best of luck.
I have learned a lot too. Thank you so much.